Of the quarterbacks below Luck and RG3, which ones intrigue you specifically and why?
Well, I'm like a lot of coaches here. I'm just really beginning my time of looking at these guys because that's what the combine is for coaches. It's the kickoff point. I've got to look at these quarterbacks a lot more. There's a lot of physically intriguing athletes. It's a little like last year, taking nothing away from that group. We saw a diverse. I thought last year's group got rushed into it or got pushed up entirely too high. I like what I see in Christian Ponder. I don't know right now. I'd say he was worth the 12th pick. Jake Locker at number 8. Blaine Gabbert, we have some questions at 10. I think that whole group would have been better served like an Andy Dalton to be in the early second round. That was probably where they belong. Doesn't mean you can't come out of it. Andy Dalton, we saw, obviously played brilliantly, particularly for a rookie. This group, once we get past those top two, there will be someone that gets pulled up, whether it be Tannehill or the like, that get pulled up into the first round. Probably belong in the second round in terms of what they've done, what their history is. They're going to get pulled up out of need as opposed to the evaluation of, oh, yeah, this guy is worth the 20th, 25th, 28th pick.
Brian, could you argue why the Colts should not take Andrew Luck?
I've already been on record. I think Andrew Luck is the most dynamic quarterbacking talent to come out since John Elway. As a prospect, okay? I go back to the old, son, your potential is going to get me fired. So it is still potential because it hasn't been on the NFL field. And people say, well, what about Peyton Manning? Let's go back and remember, we had questions about Peyton Manning. And you can't find anybody now that will admit to it, but Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf were touching. Now, there's not a human being on the face of the earth. Oh, well, we all knew. No, Ryan Leaf, that bull. Personnel and coach. They were, and we beat up San Diego for taking him, what was it, 3 that he went? If he didn't go at 3, he'd have gone at 4 or 5 or 6. Okay, 2, okay. That they were touching. As it turned out, and we had, what were our questions about Peyton? Well, is he topped out? What about the arm strength? Is it his circumstances? Well, obviously he's overcome that. By that, I think Andrew Luck has more credentials, fewer questions about him than any quarterback since John Elway. Now, it's got to come together, but I think this guy's the real deal. I don't see the arm strength thing. How many times do you ask coaches and arm strengths? Oh, his arm strength's plenty good, and he's going to mature. He's going to grow still in that arm strength. So, I think he's the most complete quarterback since John Elway.
Brian, what defensive backs was most impressive thing?
About what?
What was the most impressive thing that Byron did this year in Cincinnati?
Win, baby. I mean, how many of us were if he can get to 500, he ought to be canonized and sent, if he could just get to that. And to do it with that young team, with a rookie quarterback, with no real dominant force on defense, you lost your secondary, to make the playoffs. And this is a young team. You get Jordan Shipley back with the improvement of Gresham and A.J. Green. If they can get a dominant outside pass rusher to go on that defense, Mike Zimmer's done a phenomenal job with that defense.
What do you think they can get in the first round at 17 and 21?
Well, you'd like to get, as I size up Cincinnati, you'd like that outside pass rusher. It's not a great year for that. So, is that going to be available to them? Probably in the secondary. The fact that they lost to free agency and then the injury with Hall, probably would like to get into the secondary to shore that up. Maybe they can strike gold in the later rounds for the outside pass rush, maybe in free agency. Where they're picking in the first round, don't know that there's going to be that dominant pass rusher, but maybe they come up with a good outside athlete. So this, as it typically does, do our needs match up with how good this draft is? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But, I think Marvin, from now I'm biased, so obviously, but I thought Coach of the Year honors consideration were given what he was overcoming and what our expectations were. I think well-deserved.
Brian,
how well do you think that Mike Tyson's going to do in his new role?
Mike's going to do a great job. He's going to bring a mentality. Mike has a complete view of the game. You got to remember now, typically it's the offensive line coach. What kind of play caller will be? Remember, he was a head coach, and Mike has a bigger view of the game, and he has a certain mentality that is going, and that's why, in my opinion, Levy made him the offensive coordinator, because he wants that mentality. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be physical. Yet there's going to be an aspect of the game. They need some things. They need an outside receiver to give Jay Cutler. Best thing that ever happened to Chicago Bears was Jay Cutler getting hurt, because now the fans who are on him, now without him going, Oh, no. We were a lot better with him. So he's kind of pushed that off. We're not going to hear as much of that chatter, I don't think. If they can get an outside receiver threat, they're going to throw the ball plenty well. But that toughness that Mike brings to it, it's just what Lovie Smith wants to do in Chicago. So I think Mike will do a great job.
Brian Harbaugh is a coach that hasn't won any Coach of the Year awards despite winning the past 4 years ago in the playoffs. What do you see in him as a head coach, and why do you think he hasn't gotten it?
John's been brilliant. I think part of it is because he came into a team that was, I don't want to make this sound self-serving, but was pretty good and a good, sound organization. So it's the same reason, whether it be a Bill Belichick or now a Tom Coughlin, a Mike McCarthy. Once you've had a certain level of success, it's kind of assumed, so you don't give them credit for continuing to have that success. But John's been brilliant in what he has done in Baltimore and has them in the cusp, and they're going to be there again this year.
There are a couple pretty prominent defensive backs in this draft with off-field concerns. Just talk about the processes that you went through to evaluate those sort of things and what red flags. I've
told the story a million times. I'll tell it again. We had a young man in the combine. We had our 60 interviews, and it was late in the process, and you're tired. And we have the information on these guys. And I'm sitting with the kid, and I'm looking at his rap sheet. Nothing really serious, but enough stuff to know this guy's around. So he sat down. I said, look, you're tired, I'm tired. Let's cut to the chase. Are you a thug or are you stupid? Which is it? And he goes, are those my only options? Okay. Well, you're not stupid, okay? But I will tell you, this kid went on and played 10 years in the NFL, never had an issue. So the toughest thing is, what are the issues? Young people tend to do stupid things. Do you have a sense that he understands that he's got to change his behavior? Is he willing to have the people around him to now change that behavior? And can now, going forward, is this an ingrained part of his character, or did he just do some stupid things? And if it's the latter, yeah, you can be optimistic about the NFL and what's at stake for him will help sort that out. If it's an innate part of the character, that's where you don't want to make that mistake. But that's a tough one.
Drug use in particular.
Final question.
I'm sorry.
Drug use in particular. How do you weigh that?
What kind? I hate. It's a tough one. If the performance-enhancing drugs, that's a tough one. The league is taking the forefront on that. Obviously, we can't have it in the game. And I hate the term. I absolutely detest the term recreational drugs. Okay. But again, in our society, that's a tough one to deal with because the perceived. How egregious is that? You're looking in California. Well, sooner or later, marijuana use is going to be legal in California. Okay, and I'm from California, right? So I don't live there anymore. You look at their budget and the way they work in Sacramento, and you think they're all on dope. But what happens now if, for instance, marijuana use is now a misdemeanor in California? And what does that do to the drug testing? What's allowed? What's not? It's a slippery slope that we go down. But obviously, the league. I think I applaud the league for the way they're at the forefront at it. This is a right, or this is a privilege, not a right. And there are certain things that you have to conduct yourself. So I think the league's doing everything it can. Although the players do have legal rights within that regard. So it's always a tough one.